businesses catering the Asian community here in the United States are also gearing up for a boost in purchases during this holiday. Joanne Kwong is the president of Pearl River Mart, dubbed the first ever Chinese-American department store since its setting up more than 50 years ago. And she's joining us from New York City. Joanne, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on our program tonight. We appreciate it.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. Tell us a bit about where the idea for your business came from and what you see as the mission and how important is the Lunar New Year?
Yes, well, our company, Pearl River Mart, was founded 51 years ago in New York City by my father-in-law, and he was a Chinese immigrant from Taiwan and came in the wave of immigrants after 1965. And he was a chemistry PhD student, but he was in the Chinese community in New York City, and they came from all over the diaspora. So Taiwan, where my parents are from, is the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore. And their group of friends felt it was important that they get to know their neighbors in New York City. So they built what they kind of dubbed a friendship store, which was to extend a hand to their new neighbors in New York City, but also a gathering place for the Chinese community in New York. So Lunar New Year is very important to us because it's such a festive time, and it's time for rebirth, and especially after a tough couple of years, it's even more needed this year.
And a lot of family and a lot of food as well. Tell us about who your target consumers are, and a little bit more about people in the United States, whether Asian or not, embracing the Lunar New Year.
Yeah, I mean, over 50 years in New York, it's the most diverse city that you can be in, and one that celebrates differences in culture at this point in time. So our audience is all mixed. You know, we certainly have a large Asian American audience. We have a large audience from all over Asia, people who are here studying, working, as well as folks who are not Asian. Actually, we have a huge customer base that just loves learning about different cultures. And again, our store now is not just Chinese American. It's Asian American, and it covers all the countries in the Asian diaspora. We have many products. We have an art gallery. We have food. So, you know, for us, it's important to share. You know, you live in a country and like the United States, in a city like New York, you have to really love different cultures, and that's what we celebrate.
Well, tell us about some of the products you believe are performing well, because food is always going to be popular.
Oh, yes. I mean, during the pandemic, we actually opened a food-focused store because there were so many interesting products, not just coming from Asia, but also being created by Asian Americans. And, you know, they're different populations. We actually have seen a huge growth in demand for people who are so proud of their cultural heritage. So we're selling a lot of clothing and apparel, and some of it that's not quite traditional, but, you know, it might be a little bit traditional, a little bit modern. We're seeing a lot of demand for things that are easily packaged and sent to loved ones if they're, you know, far away from home. We actually have a box that's called a friendship box, and there's a Lunar New Year themed one, a tea themed one, a baby themed one. So anything that is both kind of the target for your celebration, but also Asian American.
Sure.
And very proud of it.
I love that name too, the friendship box. I wrote that one down. Let's now, you know, obviously people want to celebrate the good times, but look, it's been a tough, you know, year plus, not just here in the U.S., but globally. What are some of the biggest challenges right now? Inflation, and of course, the possibility of a recession.
Yeah, I think it's the uncertainty. You know, the holiday season for us, at least, was relatively strong, but a lot of that was from tourism. I think locals are, you know, hunkering down a little bit, and they're not quite sure what's coming next. So I think that's the biggest challenge, which is that there is this kind of uncertainty. But, you know, overall in New York City, I really do feel like there's a layer of optimism that this coming year is supposed to be good, which I think if you follow the Chinese almanac, it also says that the year of the rabbit is supposed to be a positive one.
That's a great one. Joanne, I had the pleasure of living in New York for 3 years and going down to Chinatown and really embracing everything it had, especially the food. I keep going back to that. But while some are concerned about major economic challenges, do you think the U.S. right now, from what you've seen, is poised for an economic rebound post-COVID?
I think so, because I think people are hoping for it, and really, I'm hoping that, it's been a tough couple of years as far as just, personal relationships and inequality. And it can't keep going that way. So I do think that that the next year will be positive, and we can only hope. Nobody knows and can predict the future. We can only hope and hope for fresh beginnings.
And also you have such an upbeat attitude, and that's really going to be necessary because there's been no shortage of, I don't want to use the term hate crimes, but certainly Asians have been there's been some bigoted outbursts. What about your company's goals and dealing with perhaps people who aren't used to the Asian American society? How do you bridge that divide and just talk to people?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because 51 years ago, my father-in-law built the store kind of as a covert way of really building relationships. And he thought that if there was a store that was in your neighborhood that sold Chinese goods and you saw Chinese people were able to interact, that bridges would fall down, and you couldn't help but not like your neighbor and the man who ran the store on your corner. And I think 51 years later, it's still that same way. Like, we need more Pearl Rivers, we need more Chinatowns, we need more restaurants, for to really just kind of create these community spaces where people of all cultures can meet and learn about each other, because that's really the only way to eradicate a lot of this hate that sometimes builds because people don't know each other, or they only know each other on digital forums.
Yeah, Joanne Kwong, I can't thank you enough. You're a wonderful ambassador. Next time I'm up there, I'm going to come up and look for the friendship box. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Angie.